But I think that the notion of focusing on mindfulness and compassion and appreciation of the fact that we're all suffering, especially in such contentious times politically, which are heartbreaking for all of us, I think, including even the people that are championing the positions that are heartbreaking for us. Many of those people, I think, are suffering in their own ways as well. A very contentious, roiled up time, but I don't know if I'm overstating this. This is also an amazing time to be a trauma therapist. If I can talk for a minute longer, Michael, on this topic, in Buddhist psychology, people are always looking for enlightenment, or they're looking to be on the bodhisattva journey. So even if they don't have enlightenment and they don't have to leave this world, they could be caring for the well-being of others. These tremendous goals that we have are just superordinate in the work that we have to do right now. We're really starting to understand that even in therapy, how many of you would agree with this in a weird way? I don't even know that in therapy we resolve people's psychological symptoms. I think what we do in good therapy, which involves often some version of mindfulness, et cetera, is we change people's relationships to their suffering so that their suffering doesn't hurt as much. So that although they have a history of trauma, they've actually developed skills and ways to handle it. And I think that's really, really true for therapists. When we look at these dilemmas, we want to look at it as challenges to effective treatment, but also gifts. And then I want to specifically see if we can look at countertransference. I went through analysis for 10 years, for good or for bad, mostly for good. And I've been through other therapies because I needed a lot of therapy in my life. I know that countertransference is a thing. It does involve some kind of an activation of your own internal states that cause you to be different with your client than maybe you could be. And maybe the biggest thing is we make what we sometimes call a source attribution error. We confuse our own activated countertransferential dynamics with the perception of the client in therapy. We're actually missing out a lot on what's going on because we're now responding to our own internal productions rather than than what's going on with our client. But this is just, as Ram Dass said many years ago, this is grist for the mill. This is the cool stuff. So how can we look at our countertransferential impulses, judgments, perceptions, and how can we address them with compassion for self and for others? I don't blame any of us that have the most fierce countertransferential reactions in the world, because the reason we do is because life set us up to have the experiences that led to us responding that way. But if we can have a soft and gentle approach to our own reactivity and our own thoughts, and not to say, I just had a hateful thought towards my client, I must be a bad therapist, they need someone better to, but instead to say, aha, I know this sounds kind of zooey ooey, but an arising negative thought about my client, which comes from my father. That's a kind of a cooler thing. We do workshops on what clients can say to themselves when they get triggered. And one workshop participant said, a therapist who's a pretty brilliant woman, said that her favorite thing when she gets triggered is, "Hi, Mom." I think we're all in the beginner category, at least certainly I am. So I don't think that's critical. I think the critical thing is, are you a therapist? Are you in training for a therapist to be a therapist? Have you discovered that there's a knife's edge between appreciating the suffering of other people and still being able to maintain what I sometimes call dispassionate compassion, the ability to be caring for the well-being of others without being pulled into it yourself and into difficult dynamics? So I think it would be fine for anyone to attend that. And by the way, you don't have to be a mindfulness person at all. You don't have to have that as a prerequisite either. If you're interested or you're not interested in that, that's perfectly fine, because this won't be Buddhism 101.